Thank you, everybody, for being here. First of all, thank you to Agora and Siri Daily. I'm beyond excited to be on this webinar. Basically, just sharing ways that I've learned to use AI in my role. So, just to introduce myself, if you don't know me, my name is Jonathan Buckelew. I've been an asset manager primarily in the multifamily space for over 10 years. And really, about a year ago, I started playing around with AI. I obviously knew about ChatGPT as everybody else did. It got released about 3 years ago, but I never thought it was for me. I thought it was just a simple chatbot that could do a few different things. I had my specific ways of doing work. I kind of rejected it. But about a year ago, I had this epiphany, not the most unique revelation, but just I didn't want to be left behind. Our industry, the real estate industry, has been left behind. We're definitely a tech backwards industry. And my goal was for myself and then eventually the people that I worked around, my property management teams, construction management teams, accounting teams. I wanted all of us to stop wasting time on what I like to say these $2 tasks, these manual inputs, these lease abstracts and looking at agreements and wasting times on PDFs and emails and really start leveraging this technology. So I became obsessed with AI and my journey was fragmented. And I think a lot of people's journey at first is I went on YouTube, newsletters, spoke to people in non-real estate industries on how they were leveraging these tools. And then I started using my imagination to try to figure out how I could apply it to real estate use cases. So I am, again, an asset manager. I work at a company called Peak. I'm the VP of asset management there. We've got about 80 properties in New York City alone. So it's super important for me to know how to use these tools to manage a property or a portfolio rather of that size. And then in addition to that, about 2 months ago, me and two other people started a company called the CRE AI Studio, where we teach others in the commercial real estate industry how to use tools like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and automation tools and this, and that, really to cut through the noise. If you're a broker, if you're an asset manager, an acquisitions analyst, we want to bring the tools and use cases there for you. So again, super excited to be here. Miles and I are going to make this super useful. We're not going to be talking about fluff and high level things. We're going to dive right into it. But Miles, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that intro. It's very helpful. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot about how you're using AI as well, because I think to your point, like everyone has different levels of comfortability and experience doing these things. And it's going to be really interesting to hear from your expert today, and like understanding like what makes the most sense given the audience here. So I think with that, the question sort of just begs itself, like what are the most common tools that you're using today? And like how do you harness the power of AI to help your day to day?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to dive into it. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go over it. But the biggest things that I'm using on a day-to-day basis, of course, ChatGPT. Again, everybody knows that one, but that is my home base. It does a lot of different things. I use it as a tool to give me insights into the New York City market. I use it as a tool, through using custom GPTs to analyze T12s and give me variance explanations. I use it as a tool to help diagnose issues on all these other tools. And this is a theme that I'm going to mention on this call today is you're going to encounter issues when you use AI. There's no way around that. When you start building things, when you get output from any of these tools, there's going to be issues, especially, we're 3 years into this. I encourage you all to use AI, whether it be a ChatGPT, whether it be a Google Gemini or a Anthropic Claude. Use those tools, the major LLMs, as a way to diagnose your issues and fix your issues. I'm going to start building some apps live on this call today. There's a chance these things aren't going to work, but I've encountered that. I've had some late nights trying to build dashboards and things like that. But instead of needing to call someone or pay someone to help fix it, I use a ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is my home base. I use Gemini, which is Google's LLM, which is a great, strong LLM that I encourage people to use as well for a lot of document processing. So if I have a PSA or a big loan agreement or whatever it may be, that's a 500-page PDF, I throw it in there and it's going to give me much better output, in my opinion, than a ChatGPT would, because it's got a better processing system. And then we're going to get into automation tools. We're going to get into a tool like GenSpark, which I use a lot for investor presentation creation, and lease trade out reports, which are going to build one out live here today. And then, and this was actually something you and I talked about a couple of days ago, Miles, the agentic browsers we're going to go over. ChatGPT just released Atlas last week. I personally can't show you that because I am a PC person. It's only available to Mac users, but I've been using Perplexity, their comment browser, which is incredible. If you're on Microsoft Edge, which I actually was before, I'm embarrassed to admit, they have released Copilot on that. And like most people who are on Chrome, you could actually use a Gemini assistant within that now too. So we're going to go over a lot of different things. We're going to build things. We're going to toggle. We're going to go from here to there, and we're going to go back because some of these things do take time to build. But there's three things that Miles and I want everyone to walk away with here is one, we want you to, hopefully you're going to walk away with at least one tool and one use case, new tool and new use case that you could use right after this call today. Secondly, and this is a big thing that I talk about, I want everyone to feel empowered by AI, that you could actually start, instead of having to rely solely on third parties for everything that you need, you could start building these things yourself or just using these tools yourself and not having to pay, in the case of multifamily, $1, $2, $3 a unit for everything. Of course, there's more complex tools out there, investment management tools like Agora, for example. You're not going to build that yourself, but a dashboard, a OM builder, which we're going to build here today, a property website we're going to build here today as well. These kind of things you're going to be able to see that your imagination is your limitation, and you can build a lot of these things yourself. So that's number two. And third, now's the time. AI started a few years ago. It's getting better every day, and now's the time to start learning these things. Because if you wait a year, 2 years, it's going to get better, but I think the curve is going to be harder. It's going to be steeper for you to actually learn those things. You're going to get more overwhelmed. Today's the day to start. So those are the three takeaways that we want everyone to have. So Miles, we ready for me to share my screen and jump into this?
We're ready.
All right, let's do it. So I put together just a little agenda. This helps me kind of when I'm watching webinars, just frame what's coming. So again, thank you to our sponsors, Agora and Siri Daily. Agenda for today, and if we have time, we'll go over some more stuff. We should be able to cover all three of these. So building with no code AI tools. I'm an asset manager. I am not an engineer, but you're going to see me build a property website, a OM builder app for all you brokers and acquisitions people out there. We're going to go into the agentic browsers. So we're going to go into Perplexity Comment, and we're going to do a few cool things there. And then we're going to end with GenSpark and Gamma, which are two tools that I'm using a lot. GenSpark to create investor reports and do a lot of data analysis. And then Gamma, if I want a more beautiful report, if I want a quick report, actually, I could record my call. I could split this into Gamma and I could have a presentation built in 20 seconds. We're going to do that all live here today. So with that being said, and at the end of the call, I'm going to share this as well, but let me hit this real quick. So compliments of Agora and Siri Daily. Everybody who's viewing this today gets a 1 month free trial to the Siri AI Studio, which again is the commercial real estate AI educational platform that myself and two other people co-founded a few months ago. So I'll put this QR code up again at the end, and then we're going to send out some thank you emails as well, which will be a link in case you missed this. So let's get started. I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to try to get out of this. So let me pull this up. So first order of business is we're going to go over these no code, vibe code tools. So Replit, Lovable, and Base 44 are my three favorite. You don't have to use all three, but these are the things that really were a big revelation for me when I was like, wait, I'm not a coder, but I could build a property website. I don't have to wait for my third-party marketing team to spend 2 weeks building a website that I don't even like, and then have another 2 weeks to build the refined version, only for me to miss out on prospects and potential, money coming into my multifamily property. So we're going to start with that here because I think it's a really great use case and it's the quickest. So I'm going to log in, And then just for the sake of time, I put together a few prompts. And I think, if you're new to AI, the prompt is probably the most important thing uh, that you have. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this here. So I created a fictitious property and I got a couple pictures online. I put it there and I'll actually write the prompt out here. So I just bought this property. Please build me a new property website using the pictures attached and the Word doc with specific information on this property. Not the best prompt, but for the sake of time, we're going to go into it. So what we're going to do here, we're going to build three things in sync, and I'm just going to wait. I'm going to move on once. I know this is going to ask me a question. So now it's processing the information. It's seeing what we need. And then it's going to ask me if I just want to build the design or if I want to actually build the full website. So I'm going to give it 20 seconds. If not, I'm going to move on to building actually an OM app, which is super useful. And I could come back here and do it. So let's just give it a couple seconds. And Miles, jump in with any questions, things that you've done, maybe tools that you like better than the ones I'm showing. All right. So we're going to hit start with the design. I'm only building the front end of the website. Again, I am not an engineer. I learned what front end was 6 months ago, but now I can build a website. So now I'm going to move over to Lovable, which is another tool. It's a really great one. You could build a lot of different things in here, just like you can in Replit and Base 44. If we have time, I could go over what I think the differences are and what I like better about some of them. So this one, actually, I was sitting in the office last week, again, at Peak. We have a capital markets team and we have some acquisition analysts, and they wanted to put together an OM using AI. And we're using a few tools, the pictures weren't great, et cetera. I was like, why don't we use one of these tools to actually build an app where we could simply go in there, put in information on the deal, where it is, the name of it, key highlights, et cetera, and then within seconds you can have an OM that you could ship off. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to, just like I did with Replit, put a couple files, and these are just, again, these are pictures of a potential property, and I'm building this app and I want to give it as much information as possible, just context, so it knows kind of, all right, there's pictures. I'm going to build a function where I could actually upload pictures for future iterations of this. So there's a fake OM in there. There's some fake pictures. And now I'm going to put in a prompt that I got actually just using ChatGPT, which that is another, I think, great piece of advice that I got. Instead of trying to come up with these prompts yourself, use ChatGPT, use these custom GPTs, which I could send people all, a couple that I use that I'll put in a couple sentences and it'll spit out pages of a prompt that I could then put in there into one of
Got
these
it.
tools.
Jonathan, just a clarifying question here. So it sounds like what you're doing to make all this entire streamlined experience work better is just using GPT, using ChatGPT to say, hey, what would be the best prompt if I'm trying to create an OM in X model? And it'll spit you out exactly what you should tell the other language model
Ex-
to do. Is that right?
Exactly. So can you see my ChatGPT?
I can.
So there's a few GPTs, and if we have time, I could go over where I found these, how to use them. But there's a few GPTs that I really like that help me with really anything. So again, we're all strapped for time to put together a 5-page GPT. Why am I, or prompt rather? Why am I even wasting time on AI? I might as well just do the work myself. But there's these GPTs that have been created. This is one of them that I really like, where I could just put in, I want to build an OM app in Lovable. Please, I don't even need to say that. It'll give me a prompt. I should be giving it a little bit more context, etc. But this is a good one because it's actually asking me questions. We're not going to go through all of this now, but it's asking me the goal of this OM app. What kind of outputs do I want? Do I want this to be a high level product prompt, etc.? I'd answer those questions and then it would give me a prompt very similar to this, which I could show everybody. Again, I just created a fake property using, this is a prompt that it gave me. And another piece of advice, always make sure with everything you're double checking. So, I looked at this prompt. I said, oh, I wanted to add here. They had this wrong. That's not applicable, etc. I updated it, and then I put it into here. So Lovable is now doing its thing. We're going to go over to the third one real quick because I want to make sure we have enough time to cover everything. And we're going to build an asset management dashboard, which this has been the biggest thing that has helped me in my day job at Peak. So I'm going to log in here, and this is going to take a little long to build. So I'm going to show you once it's, one that I've actually already built, but I want to show you the steps. And again, I know I'm going from one thing to the next to the next. These are three no code tools. You don't need to use all three. You can use one. I like to just test out a lot of different products and then give my inputs or my advice on that. But here, this one is so great, and all the others have caught up. I was able to build a dashboard, not just the way it looked, but also the back end. I could connect this thing to Outfolio, our property management system, and now this has real-time information in it. So again, I've got 75 properties at Peak. It's a huge portfolio. I have to operate by exception. So I'm not going to show you today, but for example, I built a dashboard that looks at my portfolio, and it's going to tell me any of my properties that are below 90% occupancy or are trending within the next 4 weeks below 90%. It's going to tell me all my properties that have less than 95% collection rates in any given month. It's going to tell me if I have a property with more than 5 work orders that have been outstanding for more than 48 hours, for instance. And it is such a indispensable tool that I now pull up every morning on all my property management calls. I could pull it up and say, hey guys, I noticed X, Y, and Z. And now we could get to the root of the issue much quicker than me having to go into my property management system like a Yardi, an Appfolio, an Entrata, et cetera, and have to try to find the information. So let's just build this real quick, and I'm going to show you it once the steps have been taken. So this one, again, just like Miles mentioned, go right into ChatGPT, use it as a thinking partner. I went into that prompt engineer GPT. I built a pretty quick prompt that I'm just going to copy and paste. So again, this is creating an app. 3, 4, 5 years ago, you would have to have paid someone $10,000, $20,000 to build this. Now, for the cost of I think I pay $50 a month for this. All the other tools are $20 a month. You've now saved thousands and thousands of dollars and weeks, if not months of time. And one caveat being, of course, you hire someone to build this, it might be a bit more effective, especially at first, but you could get a lot of the way there, especially for these very simple things like building a dashboard. I don't need somebody for that. But if I wanted to build something a bit more complex where I need a lot of APIs, et cetera, definitely consult someone who's got a tech background and all that. So this is going. We're going to go back to the original one. Look at that. Within probably 3 minutes, we built a property website. So again, this was a fake website, or a fake property rather, that I took. And within minutes, I now have a website that took pictures, where it is, all these different buttons, gives me an outline as to where this property is, what it is, the amenities it has, photo gallery, all of that. And I could come back in here and say, you know what, change this picture, change these words, add in more functionality, connect this to apartment list or apartments.com or Zillow via XYZ. And now you have a full-fledged website with a few more steps than what I just did. You have a full-fledged website in an hour or 2 hours when you put in all those steps, versus, again, like I said before, I've had third-party marketing teams take weeks to give me a website that I ultimately don't like because they had the wrong copy, wrong pictures, wrong whatever. And then they would spend another week refining it. And then maybe a month after the initial request, I now have a new website. Here, let's call it a day or two for just revisions. You now have a website that you could deploy. It's incredible what you could build now. So that's that, Miles. I don't know if you have any questions on that. We can move on to the next one.
I mean, I'm kind of blown away by how great this looks in
It's
2 minutes.
incredible.
It's
Two
incredible.
minutes. 2 minutes, you have a property website. You would just need to buy a domain name, which you probably already have. You connect it here, you're done. So, all right, OM Builder. So we took that prompt, it built this. and it already created one in here. I'm actually going to go to, I did this same example before. I'm going to go to one that I know I trust, especially for the sake of this presentation. So real quickly, we're going to build an OM. So I built an app. You would buy a domain name for this as well. You could save this in your favorites and you could come to this whenever you needed it. So real quick, we're just going to just take the example data that's in there. Starlight Building, 201 Steel Street. I can make all this up. Colorado. And I just want to go through these steps. I don't want to miss anything because I want everyone to see how easy this is. So executive summary, I'm going to take this from the file I have on my other screen. Give me 1 second. So again, this is the fake property. And let's take a executive summary. I'm just going to copy that. Go back in here. I'm going to upload some pictures so you guys can see it. And again, the AI is never going to get all of this right at first. And not even just right, maybe it's too basic for you. But all you need to go in here is go into this prompt box, put some your revisions and all that, and you're going to have exactly what you want. So making up numbers, 500, just want it to be thorough, 6.0, $1 million in revenue. If these numbers definitely don't make sense to people who are keeping track, so don't do that. All right. We're going to add a tenant in real quick. Oh, I hit the button. Amazon, technology. All right, we don't need to fill all this out. All right, location. Miles, any questions on this?
The only question I guess I have is you're adding tenants. Is there a way to like, could you bulk add tenants? Is that a thing that you could build in purposely?
Oh, absolutely. All I just need to say, hey, I've got a Excel sheet that I just want to upload. Instead of me manually putting this information in here,
Help me.
upload all this. And that could be applied to anything. You could have a PDF that you have all this info. You could just say, hey, I just want to upload it as opposed to just manually writing it in, and it would populate it for you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, even if this use case isn't applicable to your job, just like I'm an asset manager, I don't deal with creating OMs, but it's these kind of things. Look at that. I've got an OM, a basic OM. The brokers out there are probably like, this doesn't have everything I need. You could add all that to there. But
It's
a
fully
base,
customizable, it sounds like what you're
oh
saying.
yeah, you could print it, you could download it, you could, put in functionality to email it to people. It's incredible what you could do. So now if I'm a broker, I just created an app. It's specific to the way I want my OMs to look. I could actually put in, you could get really complex. You could put in an LLM where it says, hey, this is the Denver market. Please put together a 2026 Outlook report in 4 paragraphs within this OM as well. It's simple. It's incredible what you could do. So any questions on that?
I know that when I was doing a lot of broker work back in the day, like CoStar was kind of the source of truth for all things market related in terms of evaluating markets, getting comps. And I remember getting comparables was probably one of the most time consuming things, specifically putting a
Oh
map
yeah.
together with all of the dots of the properties with the right photos and the right information on this like one page, right? I imagine that this could be a really, really fast way to get something like that done that just ordinarily would be so time consuming to get done.
Oh yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. In the agentic browser section of this webinar, we're going to build a market survey
Oh, great.
where we're going to say, hey, this is my property. Find me the top 5 comps, put together a table with 1 beds, 2 beds, 3 beds, and it's going to do it for us. So the sky is the limit. But again, I know we're making it sound easy. The goal is to start getting an understanding of what these tools are, what they can do, what the limitations are, but those limitations are getting smaller and smaller every day. So there's still the human being definitely needs to be very involved in all of this. Human in the loop, it's called. Still fact checked all these things. I put together reports and I'm like, where did you get that information from still? But a lot of these things, especially as they get more complex, I get 85, 90, 95% of the way there. and it saved me hours and hours of my time. All right, the last no code tool, Base 44. We're going to go to something I actually already built because I don't think this will be done yet. Oh, it is done, but it's got no information in it. But if you look at this, we just built a dashboard. Doesn't work yet, but we built basically the skeleton of a dashboard, which with a little engineering, hey, I want this, I have the AppFolio API. Here are the credentials. Please put it in there. Done that. That was one of the coolest things that I've done since being on this AI journey. Or in the case of a lot of these PMSs where you can't get an API, you could download a CSV file from a Yardi, for example. You could have it automatically generate from Yardi, have it sent into this dashboard, and all that information can then populate into the dashboard so you could see it. So there's ways around a lot of these different things, or hurdles, let's call it. So let's just go to one that I built in the past. This is also dummy data, but you know, I've spoken to a lot of third-party companies that there will be a $10,000 upfront fee to build it, and then call it a $2,000 fee per month to maintain it. And they built the front end, they have a connection to your PMS, or they're scraping data off the PMS and they're populating the dashboard. This again, $50 subscription plus a couple hours of work, you could get pretty much all the way there. And like I mentioned before, I'm using dashboards like this to dissect my portfolio. Where are the problems, collections, occupancy, work orders, etc. So I could get ahead of it. So I could have leading indicators in some cases, like, hey, occupancy is trending downwards in 4 weeks. Let's get ahead of it. Or lagging indicators. We've only collected 92% of rent at property X, and it's the 29th of the month. Something's going on here. We're usually at 98%. Let's diagnose that. So again, we'll call it 20 minutes, we've built a property website. Looks pretty sleek. I've got some tweaks to it, but we built a OM app where I can now build offering memorandums in seconds. And we built an asset management dashboard all in 20 minutes. Now, again, to take them 100% of the way there requires a little bit more time, but it's incredible what you can do with AI these days. And I recommend using these tools, just playing around with them and seeing what you could do. So, Miles, did I miss anything? Any questions on this section before we go over to the agentic browsers?
No, I think this is great. I would say that the only question I do have, kind of to your point about the cost, is that I know that the thing I hear the most is that security is kind of a question that people will have, like in terms of data usage. Like, how is this going to use my data to then build on its own model if it's an LLM, or is my data secure in something like this? How would you answer that question, and like, how do you sort of get around those hurdles in your day to day?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, with all the LLMs, there is and people might not take stock in all of this. And if you have so much skepticism, I don't have as much skepticism. I guess I'm not as nervous about my data, but when there's data that is sensitive, uh, I could shield the numbers. So in this case, with the dashboard, of course, it's pulling information out of AppFolio. I'm not shielding anything. I'm not able to manipulate that. Um, but I know just through reviewing this, talking with people actually at Base 44, there's a lot of security protocols within this product, within the replets, within the lovables that protects this data. No different than obviously Google's a much bigger company and has a lot bigger cybersecurity budget, but no different than when I put information into Google Drive or Dropbox or SharePoint. I'm going in there with a level of trust. But again, if it is sensitive data, we're going to go over an example of a lease trade out report. I cleaned up data on that. When I think, hey, I don't want to share this data with the AI, I'll remove the property name. I'll of course remove tenant names. I'll never put tenant names in AI, and I'll get the output back. And then once it's in Excel, I could add that information back in. So we actually, not to keep plugging CRE AI Studio, but one of our co-founders is a lawyer, and she talks all about this privacy stuff, which I know is a huge topic. Especially at the larger organizations, people might not feel comfortable going to tools like this and using it and deploying it because there's a lot of different security measures that they need to go over. So when it comes to all the LLMs, there's buttons that you could turn off. or on to protect your data, so you don't share it with a model to train it. You might be skeptical about that. I'm not so much, but yeah, it's definitely something you should be thinking about. And whenever you're using AI, make sure you're not putting in sensitive data, social security numbers, of course, financial information on people, companies, etc. But it's definitely an involving question that, you know, I'm still learning a lot about as well. So with that, let's move on to the next section, which is the agentic stuff, which is very appropriate because ChatGPT, let me just exit out of all this. So, like I mentioned before, ChatGPT, and I've got Siri Daily because we're going to use a use case on them right after I say this. But like I mentioned before, ChatGPT just released their own agentic browser last week called Atlas. Perplexity, which is the one that I have open, it's called Comet. It was released about 4 or 5 months ago. And then there's a few others, again, a lot of people use Chrome. Gemini is now in there. You hit a button, you have an assistant section, kind of similar to this one. If you see over here to the right, if you're using Microsoft Edge, it'll have Copilot. It is amazing what these things can do. So the way that I look at AI is generative, agentic, and automations I throw in there as well. So the generative stuff, everybody knows. You go into ChatGPT. Please tell me about the Savannah market. Bam, it'll spit something back out. That's generative. It's giving you information. Agentic is when you're telling AI to actually go out and do something. Hey, go pull a report from X, Y, and Z on the Savannah market, summarize it, send an email of it to me and my entire team. That's agentic. It's actually going out there and doing things and performing work for you, not just bringing data back to you. And then the automation pieces, which I don't think we're going to cover today. I think people might have heard of Zapier or Make or N8N or Relay.app. That's where you have these automations just running automatically, hence automations. Things like, dissect my calendar on a daily basis and tell me who I'm meeting with, scour their LinkedIn for some context on who they are, look at my emails to see what we're going to be talking about today, send me an email at 8 o'clock in the morning, every morning about my upcoming events. That's an automation. So that's how I look at it. Generative, agentic, and automations. Here we're going to go on the agentic route. So this is Perplexity Comet. It's incredible. So for example, I'm on Siri Daily. Let's say, please pull, let's say I don't have time to read all these articles and I was away on vacation and I just want to stay up to date with anything multifamily related. Again, I'm an asset manager in multifamily. So please look up the top 3 multifamily articles. This is not the best prompt, but the top 3 multifamily articles over the past 7 days. Summarize it. Oops. Summarize it and send an email to jonathan.buckelew@gmail.com. So I might have said this to start, especially when you're doing these things live, always expect an issue. Sometimes these things work beautifully. They will find the top 3 articles. They'll put together a great summary. They will send the email flawlessly to myself. Okay, what happened here? That happened. Wow, that was quick. Okay, maybe this is one of those perfect times. So, hey, Jonathan, here's a quick summary of the top 3 multifamily articles from CRE Daily over the past 3 weeks. Now, if I want a bigger summary than this usually. I'd want maybe a 3-paragraph summary. But for the sake of this, let's just say this is right. Blackstone earnings rise 48% in Q3. That was from today. Construction surge lifts. That was from a few days ago. Luxury apartment fraud spikes. I remember this article. That's from 5 days ago. All right, let's just say this email is perfect. Send. This is perfect to sending to yourself, and you could set these up to be automated, to send this to your team, to send this to prospects, whatever it may be. So now let's see if it actually emailed me. And if I don't get the email, okay, here we go. So I'm going to pull this up real quick. I don't want everybody to see all my email. top multifamily CRE articles. I've done that before, Miles, where I share my entire life with people
Oh,
on the
I've done that
webinar. Yeah.
too.
So as everyone can see, you could hold me to it 0 minutes ago. So this just got sent. Top multifamily CRE articles, weekly recap, today's date. And then it has Blackstone, construction surge, luxury apartment fraud, all of that. So think about things like that. I could say, hey, I want the past year's worth of articles on multifamily, put together a 5-page report specifically to this market, whatever it may be, and I could get that in the browser itself to my email, send it to other people's email. I could send this to my Google Drive to save it or my Dropbox. That is a basic use case, but it highlights probably a very useful use case for a lot of people on here. So that worked. I was just going into my whole spiel about this thing. You know, these things tend to not work 100% of the time on the call, but we were good here. So that was number one. Now, like I mentioned before, and actually I had these browsers open. Here's the ChatGPT Atlas, Microsoft Copilot if you use Edge, and Gemini and Chrome. And feel free to reach out to me if you want to learn more about these things and how to actually just turn them on. But again, I'm using Perplexity Comet. It's been out for a few months. I like it a lot. So let's exit out of here. Let's open up a new one. And the more context you give any AI, the better output you're going to get. So I could, we're going to build a market survey. I've got, let's say, a property in Savannah, Georgia. Instead of having my property managers or my leasing agents call around or go on apartments.com, pull the information, which is a waste of time. It's very useful, but it's a waste of time. I can now have an agentic browser do it for me. Well, point being, instead of just adding all of that here with a clean browser like this, the more context you give it, the better. So let's just go to apartments.com. And all right, we could just do Birmingham, which is where I used to have a property. We're going to pretend like this is our property. And you might want to go to the property website. Sometimes on apartments.com when I do this, it takes a little bit longer. If it does, I'll show you the output regardless, but let's just see. So this is a property I own. Please put together an Excel like table that gives me the price breakdown for studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, and 3 beds. If there isn't a floor plan type, please put NA. After that, look up my top 5 comps. Oops. So I'm adding more to it. It's going to take a little bit longer, but if it takes too long, we're going to go to something else and we'll come back. After that, look up my top 5 comps within a 5-mile radius. Now, I could just tell it my comps. That would be the better route as opposed to having it guess. But again, this is not one of my properties. I don't know the comps, so I'm going to let it do its thing. After that, look up my top 5 comps within a 5-mile radius and add the info to the table. All right. So as you can see, it's within apartments.com. It's going to a few other things. And you can see the blue surround, which I think is really cool. Now it's taking over my browser. So before, it didn't really take over my browser. It was just looking for the materials. I don't think the blue screen popped up. It put together the information. It sent it to me. Sometimes this will actually pull up a Google sheet or an Excel sheet, and you're actually going to watch it populate that. We're going to do another example real quick, and I might show it, but let's let it do its thing, and we'll go over to another use case real quick, and then we're going to go over to our last part of this call, which is the presentation piece. So now, and this was a use case that was, and I'm actually still doing it, but it was super helpful for me. So loan agreements, a lot of information within those loan agreements. Every good asset manager is going to have a lead or a loan abstract file, which will have all the important information, property name, property address, lender name, interest rate, maturity date, prepayment penalties, financial covenants, all that kind of stuff, all within one Excel. At peak, like I mentioned before, we have 75 properties. That would take me a long time to do. And before Comet came out, I was actually feeding that into Gemini, which was working well, but I can only do a handful at a time. You definitely want to spot check all these things. That would take a lot of time. So I wanted to kind of get it done in one fell swoop and then spot check it. So when Comet came out, I actually ran this example. So I'm going to go into my Google Drive. I'm going to go into fake loan agreements that I created using AI. All right, here are 5 fake loan agreements. So let's pretend that these are real loan agreements and you just started your new job, or these are 5 new agreements. You just bought 5 new deals, all with 5 new loans. You could just come in here, and I think I put together a prompt. It's not a hard one, but let's see. If not, I'll just write it out. All right, I did not want it. So let's just do one real quick. Here are 5 multifamily loan agreements. Please put together, oops, together a table in, let's call it Google Sheets, because we're in G Drive right now. Google Sheets that has the following information. Just like I said before, so property name, property address, lender name, maturity date, loan amount, interest rates, and I think in these prepayment penalties. I don't need to do all that. Let's just do less just to keep it a little quicker. Add these column headers to the Google Sheet. Again, the more stuff you give it, the better output you're going to get. So this one, super important because an abstract file is something that I reference all the time. I've done this one a couple times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But as you can see here, which I think is really cool, AI just clicked on loan agreement number 1. And let's give it a few seconds. If it does its job right, it's actually going to pull it up to start looking at it, which is incredible. Again, you could see my hands. I'm not doing anything right now. It's all my computer. So think about this. You could run stuff like this. You could do all these things at once. You could go into a meeting. You could leave for the day. You could go to sleep. Oh, sorry, your file request. See, I told you guys, it doesn't always work. Let's try it again. Um, you could go to lunch and come back, and this can be done. So again, all this information is important, which is why we need to do steps like this, or why we've done manual steps like this in the past, to get this information. But the manual process are the things that I'm trying to avoid as much, so much rather, whether it be me, an analyst, all my other teams, etc. There is so much information out there, and we're wasting so much time compiling it out of a SharePoint, a G Drive, a property management system, the internet. It's now never been easier to just have AI do these things for you. Again, spot check all of it, but it's things like this that have saved me so much time. So now instead of focusing on those $2 tasks, I could focus on the $100, $200 tasks. They're actually going to move the business. They're going to move, real change, real material change at these properties. I could, figure out bigger problems at these properties or uncover better opportunities that increase my NOI, increase my refi or my sale proceeds, bring more money to my investors in our case, and just have a better overall return for everybody.
And Jonathan,
So
I'd like to just call out briefly here that I think
yeah,
that what you've just said is probably the most important part of this entire exercise, right? It's a lot of the times it's like this stuff is really cool. Don't get me wrong, I'm like amazed looking at this.
yeah,
The point I think that we're trying to get at here with this is that, failure to apply at least some level of AI, ideally at the level you're showing us, but even at a baseline level, is really the choice to not maximize profit for what you're doing. And ultimately, I think that that's really what it comes down to is other people will be using these tools, and that's why it's critical to sort of get ahead of the curve here and not be left behind.
absolutely. That is those last 2 words, left behind. Don't Nobody wants to be left behind. Our industry has definitely been left behind in the past, and we're the biggest asset class in the world. And we've been operating, I wouldn't say over the past 5 years, but historically, we've been operating on really outdated technology and processes. Now is the time to play catch up. We don't have to be tech forward, but as long as we're tech neutral and we're staying kind of, aware of what's going on and how to use these things and, spreading it within our organizations, that will again save so much time. We'll work smarter. We'll have better returns for everybody. So yeah, as Miles was talking, one of the PDFs actually pulled up, which was cool. It's actually looking at these PDFs. It's compiling all this information off to the right. And just for the sake of time, because I want to move on to the presentation stuff, I have this, I believe, over here. I mean, let's see where it is. Yeah. So basically, I did this example this morning. This is what it did. So I would have a lot more information. Again, financial covenants, reporting requirements, whatever it may be. This would be a lot of different columns. I could add colors to it. I could sort this by maturity dates, all of that. But just compiling this information and having it here, imagine 75 properties. That would have taken me hours and hours and hours. This, doing 75 properties in Perplexity's Comet would probably take 30 minutes. And then I could take the output and tailor it the way I want. So it's really incredible. And then we could go back here. Let's see if this is done. This is not done. But just imagine a nice looking market survey. Our property is Rise Red Mountain. It has the different pricing. It has the top 5 comps that it found and has the pricing for that. And now I could pull it up on my leasing call and say, hey, our properties, our top comps rather, um, they just lowered their price and they just added a concession. Do we need to do that as well? Are they struggling because of the plant that just closed down and we're more reliant on teachers? Let's get to the bottom of that. So those are the 3 use cases: scouring Siri daily for articles on multifamily, emailing it. Same thing here, market survey, emailing that to myself and in theory, my leasing team. And then this loan agreement, which I just showed you the output for it before, having this at my fingertips, not having to do this manual work, incredible time saver. So I'm going to stop there. Let's pause this. And we've got 15 minutes. Let's move on to the presentation stuff, which I think is really cool. So let's pull up GenSpark. So GenSpark is one of my favorite tools, and you don't have to even do the use case I'm about to go over. GenSpark is one of these tools. It's not an LLM, but it gives you access to all the LLMs. So if you want to see what's the best output, hey, I want to find I don't know, I want to do a research on the Birmingham market. And I don't want to have to put the same prompt into Gemini and Claude and Grok and ChatGPT, but I want one place to do it for me, and then I get to choose which is best. You could come to a place like GenSpark. Image generation for you marketing teams out there. Instead of having to go to, you can see here, Nano Banana, which is Gemini's product, or you're going into ChatGPT and using their product or whatever other tools out there, you can go into here and it'll give you, let's say, 4 different examples of the output, and you could choose which one is best. So this is an LLM aggregator in addition to being a lot more other things. And just for that alone, it's an incredible tool. But GenSpark is a place where I come when I want to bring in Excel. So I don't really like using ChatGPT for financial analysis. Haven't tried Gemini, although I've heard it's pretty good. Uh, Claude I use more for writing. Here is where I've gotten the best output, where I could put in 2 different Excel sheets and I could get back something. So I mentioned this before, Miles, you and I spoke about this a few weeks ago. A lease trade out report. Tenant X moves out, tenant Y moves in. What is the delta? What is the increase, hopefully, in rent? And what is that percentage increase as well? That report, I've now worked in 3 or 4 different property management systems: Yardi, Outfolio, Entrata, I guess 3. None of them had the report that I wanted. Something as simple as that. Are these renovations working? Should we be focusing on renewals versus not bringing in new people because we're not getting the bumps that we thought? That would take me so long to compile because those reports weren't available. Here, this happened to me 2 months ago. An investor actually asked me, hey, can you put together a lease trade out report on this property? So we're going to do it right now. And then we're going to take that and we're going to build a report in Gamma, which is our next tool, which that's probably the tool everyone's going to start using right away because it's really incredible. In addition to all these, but it's very easy to use as well. So, all right, a lease trade out report. So I have a rent roll from a year ago, October of 2024, and I have a rent roll from October of 2025. And I'm going to give it some instructions to build this lease trade out report. Let me just pull that up real quick. I already created this prompt. And basically all I want to know is if someone's name appears on the first one, and I made these names up, so it's not real people's names and all that. But if someone's name appears on the October 24 rent roll and also on the 25, that means they renewed because in theory, if they moved in October, well, all of our move-ins are happening 9/30. So they would have expired already. Point being, they would have expired. If they're still on this rent roll in October of 25, that means they renewed. If that's the case, give me the increase in rent and the percentage, and add this to the renewal bucket. If that name doesn't appear on the October 25 rent roll, that means that that person moved out. Give me the new rent, the increase, again, hopefully on a dollar amount basis and on a percentage basis, and then compare the two. Are we doing better when people move out? Are we doing better when we renew? Now, to me, I always want people to renew because, especially in New York City, the cost of someone moving out between turn costs, broker fees, downtime, etc., it exceeds probably any rent bump you're going to get, unless it's, a gut renovation, you're getting a $500 rent bump. But this is such a great report because in this case, and we're not going to wait for this to get done because it's going to take a little while, but I'm going to show you the output that I actually got. And this all worked in, 10 minutes. When I went to lunch, when I came back, I was like, whoa. So this is a property that has two buildings, so building one and two. I now get to see my overall statistics. So, all right, over the past year, we have a 67% renewal rate. Pretty good, especially here in New York. We kind of aim for that. But the more interesting thing to me, building one was at 58%, building two is at 77. So that alone tells me building two, doing great. Building one, what is going on here? That would prompt me, and it did, to go visit the property, talk to my property management team, speak to people who actually moved out and ask them why, and figure out, are there maintenance issues there? Are there rodent issues there? We're in New York, those things happen. Why is that building doing worse than the other? And then down here, it's telling me the differences between my renewal increases and my new lease increases. So average rent increase, $70, call it, median 57. That's a 1.72. So not bad, not great, but not bad. But again, probably better with that 1.72 versus this 2.5 because of all the costs associated with a move out. But it's interesting that, I'm getting a $157 bump on a new lease. Why that's happening here is we added washer dryers to some units during this period, and we got some big bumps because of that. So with that kind of context, hey, maybe if we can add in a washer dryer, I actually want someone to leave. But this is giving me so much great data. And here's the table. Like here's all the different units, these unit numbers. I manually did this. This is obviously wrong, but these should say unit numbers. Here's the building number, one and two. If they left, if they didn't, renewed, did not renew, prices. This is just all the backup. So this was great. I could send this to an investor and he or she would be very happy. Or I could take this output and build a report off of it. So Gamma. So Gamma, which actually just had a huge update a few weeks ago, Gamma 3.0, which we're not going to go into all the specifics there, but this was a tool that a friend of mine told me about 9 months ago. Topher, if you're listening, Topher loves this tool as well. He's one of the co-founders at the studio. We talk about this tool a lot. I mentioned before that a friend of mine also has a AI note taker that's connected to this via an API. And after certain calls, let's say it's with a prospect, a new investor, a third party customer, whatever it may be, it'll take that transcript It'll build out a 5-page presentation, 10-page, 15, 20, whatever you want, and it'll email it to you right away for a review. It's incredible what this thing does. So we're going to come in here. I'm going to sign in, and we're not going to go into how everything works now, but we're essentially just going to, so there's a few different things you could do. You could, send in a prompt. I'm just going to paste in or upload rather a PDF. And that PDF is exactly of that lease trade out report that I just showed you. So let's go back. So this lease trade out report is essentially, I just took that Excel. So the Excel that I just had open, I just put it into a PDF format because you can't actually upload Excels in here. And it's now processing all this information. And again, this first go around is going to be, in my opinion, pretty impressive, but you give it a few tweaks, you upload your company's brand colors and brand icons, etc. You can make it specific to you. But let's just give it a second to come. All right. So it's asking me if I want a presentation, web page, document, or something for social media. Let's do a presentation. How are we doing on time, Miles? We've got 5 minutes, right?
Yep, we've got about 5 minutes
All right.
left.
So let me just do this real quick. All right. It's got some things off to the side. I'm just going to hit generate. It's a 10, so 10 cards, that's 10 slides essentially. Let's hit generate. So again, investor asked me for a lease trade out report. I used GenSpark to actually, I took two rent rolls from my PMS system, uploaded it into GenSpark. Within 10 minutes, got a lease trade out report. Now I'm bringing that into Gamma, and now it's giving me this. A lot more professional for me to send something like this than the Excel. And think about all the different use cases you could use something like this for. So it's taking all that information, adding pictures, stats, pie charts, insights, which it's guessing on the insights. I could just add in, well, we added washer dryers in here, so that's why we got some of these big rent bumps, but incredible what it's doing. And I could
Jonathan, one thing I'd
change,
like to call out here that I just
but
came to mind for me is that a lot of times you hear people saying that AI is going to is going to rip and replace humans entirely, and there's kind of this scare of like the future. But I think to what you've just said, it's very important, right? Like the context is key, and that's really what makes a difference here. So while of course the AI does the bulk of the heavy lifting here in terms of like what it's doing for me structurally, you're still able to say actually the context here is that building one versus two might be differential there. And like that's an actionable insight that only you, as the person with the context, could draw. Or, hey, I know that this happened because of the fact that we added in washer dryers. So I think that like really we need to be more embracing of this from a standpoint of like it's not going to be something that's going to kick you out of your job. It's really just going to help you do your job that much better. Do you agree with that?
I think that is such a great point to end on. It's easy to fall into and we could all be dead wrong, but it's easy to think, well, if I start using AI and it becomes more commonplace in my job, what do they need me for? The more and more I use AI, the more and more I'm blown away by it. But the more and more, to your point, I see that I'm needed. I'm still very much needed to give the context, to put together different things, to make sure that the information is correct, to make sure that the information that is correct is getting sent to the right people. Uh, a lot of this information is not just, hey, I'm taking it and sending it. We're spot checking it. I'm using it as a supplement in meetings, et cetera. So I think that it is such a great and an important point that it's my hope, and I'm pretty confident in this, that it will be a complement to us, a supplement for us, not a replacement of us. But again, now is the time to learn all these things. So we've got 3 minutes. I'm going to stop here. But again, within 20 minutes from start to finish on, let's just say this use case, pulling two rent rolls, getting a lease trade out report in GenSpark, building a presentation in Gamma, and then emailing this to an investor. Let's just say our investors are really happy with the stuff that they're getting. So I'm going to stop there. I don't know if there's any questions, Miles, but again, thank you for everybody for listening. I know that was a lot. I did not want to overwhelm everybody. There will be a recording where people could go back and watch this again. But again, you know, you could follow me on LinkedIn, send me a DM. I'm always here to answer questions. And like I mentioned before, everyone who's watching is getting a free month to the Siri AI Studio where we teach all of these things. It's a community of a lot of people right now where we're just vibing off of commercial real estate, how to use AI, et cetera. So, Miles, I'll pass it back off to you.
Well, again, thank you. And thank you everyone so much for attending. And Jonathan, virtual round of applause for you for taking the time today
Thank
to
you.
go through this amazing presentation. I mean, I'm thinking about what we've done in an hour and we've created,
Crazy.
I mean, it's hell. I'm blown away. So I know I learned a tremendous amount from this, and I really thank you for again dedicating the time to show us what you know and to hopefully inspire some next steps and some conversations moving forward. Um, so yeah, everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to attend today. As Jonathan said, you'll be getting a free subscription, and we'll be in touch over email with next steps as well as that material. So feel free to
Yep.
add us on LinkedIn and please reach out for any questions that you have. And we're really grateful for your attendance today.